Yeah.
Katja, you also mentioned taking an herb, maybe I think you said Schisandra by tincture, and you might not notice the physiological effects going on in your body. I just wanted to bring up, I've been taking St. John's wort tincture as a recommendation to me for I want to say several months now, and people are like, "Oh, how does that make you feel?" And I have to be honest with them. I'm like, I don't actually notice anything, but I have to presume something's going on there. I mean, I know that there's lots of studies out there with St. John's wort and whatnot, but maybe I am feeling a little brighter these days, less gloomy days. But I don't know if you have anything to add on to that. But
I mean, it's hard to say, yes, I feel that the liver enzyme concentration has been by apparent approximately 2.5%, like whatever. Like, it's really hard to feel that, but you might feel that like you're processing things better. If you're a person who drinks caffeine, you may find that it clears better. Or if you're a person who drinks alcohol, you may find that you have a little less hangover. It might be subtle at first. And so you might have to sort of ask yourself, like, do I feel that? And then like give yourself a minute to be like, you know what, actually, that has been happening and I didn't quite notice. Or you may find that like overall transit time in the digestive system improves, or in other words, you're less constipated.
right.
Right. And you might not attribute that directly to St. John's wort, especially if you're thinking about St. John's wort in neurological terms.
Yeah.
The digestive system and the emotional nervous system are so tightly twined. And if you think about, like, to not be too delicate about it, if you just think about constipation, physically, it's quite uncomfortable. Emotionally, it's a thing. And those two things are connected. And so, like, if you think about St. John's wort's emotional effects directly in terms of the digestive effects, and you're like, I am a little less constipated and also a little less emotionally constipated,
Yeah. Those would be the kinds of effects we would be highlighting for somebody who was going to work with St. John's wort for that. Would be like, all right, this is what we're going to look out for over a period of time that might be, like you said, a few months or 6 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And it can often be hard to kind of think back to where you got started from,
Yeah.
And then so it's like, all right, well, what are we going to track and how are we going to do that? And both as like a thing for students or people who are studying herbalism or working with herbs to do for themselves when you're learning a new herb or when you're experimenting with a new herb for yourself. But then, also when you're going to be a clinician and you're going to recommend the herb to someone else, you want to help them to get some of those goalposts or those way markers, right? If they come in and they do an intake session with you, that's a bunch of data, right? That's a baseline, or that's like a snapshot of what's going on for that person right now. And then if we meet again in a month or 3 months or 2 weeks or whatever the right time is, we can see where they've gotten to. But what's really great is if someone is going to like keep some kind of a journal or some kind of like a health checklist, like, how am I doing today on these 6 markers? This is what's been bugging me. This is what I'm trying to change. I start this herbal protocol. I start this new set of lifestyle habits. We check in on those once a day, something like that. That can be effective. Other people like a more, narrative journal. Some people like symptom scores. People like different things, but something like that is really, really important because we want to know if our herbs are working, right? We want to know if the thing that we're working with is doing what we hoped for. And again, it's so easy to forget where you were yesterday, a week ago, let alone months ago.
True. Also, like, humans get stuck in a rut. Like, that is just the default for any given human is a rut because that's efficient. Like the human body is just like an efficiency seeking entity at all times. And so if you have not been well in whatever way, you get migraines, you get whatever, you kind of adjust to that as being your normal. And that settles in. And when something changes, great, it changes, but you very quickly adjust to that being your normal. And so you kind of try to check in with yourself and you're like, I don't know, I feel normal. And it's like pushing past that to like, no, I need to really like evaluate what that means. And this is why I personally have trouble with the number scores. A lot of people find them helpful, and there's so many ways to track things, that it's good to try different ways and see what works best for you. But I really find a little bit of like quantitative and qualitative narrative to be helpful. So if somebody says like, I get migraines 5 times a week, and those migraines are enough to make me stay home, not go and do what I wanted to do. And then a month later, you see that person again and you say, hey, how are you doing? And they say, oh, about the same. And they believe that, because that is what the human, it's not because they're dumb or because they're not intuitive or they're not connected to their body or whatever. They believe it because that's what the human brain does. Everything, like what you're doing right now, it is normal. And so then you say, okay, how often did you have a migraine last week? Oh, I had 1. Great. The last time I saw you, it was 5 a week, and now we're down to 4. This is fantastic. And that's usually when it clicks, like, oh my goodness, you're right. I did have 5 a week before.
Right.
And so whatever method allows you for yourself as you are experimenting or as you're working with others to track that kind of information, help other people track that kind of information. And it's okay to do it on your phone. It's absolutely okay. They make apps that help you really quickly assess, did I or did I not have a headache today or whatever.
That's cool.
Yeah. One that we really like is called Dailyo. It's just a little graphical. You just click the picture, but
yeah, you give it the list of things that you want to just track. Did this happen today or not? Like, had a headache, didn't have a headache. You could put your number scale in there. You could do different things. Got to bed on time, stayed up late, whatever, and then you can collect some data. So, but again, the point is just like finding some way to do that. That can make a big difference. And sometimes people will be uncertain about if the herbs are working or if the thing that they're buying is worth the expense or whatever else. Or
the trouble.
So if we can help somebody to sort that through, then we can serve them in many ways.
Yeah.
Like not all the work we do for clients is choosing herbs that are going to match their dosha or anything like that.
Actually, and we were just talking with one of our mentorship groups. We have as students progress, from their first classes all the way through towards clinical herbalism. When they're ready to start seeing their own clients, we have them in weekly mentorship so that we're going over every client with them and helping them as they like learn to do this work on their own and get comfortable with it. So anyway, last week with our mentorship group, we were talking specifically about that in that, like, when you're working with somebody clinically or as friends or whatever, your first suggestion is not the final answer. Like, your first suggestion is the first round of experimentation. And then you have to track the data. There's not like a guarantee that first formula, that first whatever is going to be the perfect thing that works, no matter how good of an herbalist you are.
Yeah.
Because everything is about like, okay, we're going to match up these ideas with this body. We think this is going to be the outcome. Now we're going to do the experiment and find out. And so you always have to be following up and checking that data and making adjustments, because even if it was perfect, there's still going to be adjustments. Oh, okay, great. Well, it was perfect for a month, but now your body's different. So we might need a different formula now. Or
we kind of hope for that, don't we?
Right. Or maybe it wasn't the perfect thing. There's nothing wrong with that. That does not mean you're a bad herbalist. It just means we have data now and we'll make some adjustments and get closer to the target each time.
So much good stuff there. I want to say, as far as the St. John's wort stuff goes, versus I had a linden infusion the other day, and I noticed the physiological effect immediately. Like it's just so crazy to feel like immediately brightened and like my mood lifted. And, I always joke that I'm going to get these knuckle rocker tattoos that say herbs work on them, even though it doesn't quite fit. But like, it's moments like those where I'm like, shit, herbs really do work. And I'm sitting here, taking St. John's wort tincture every single day for months on end without actually feeling it. But, based on how you chatted about that, Katja, looking back, I'm like, I have had, say, less certain spells over the past few months and whatnot. And like you said, it's like, what is your normal? You have to like compare it to when you first started the program then versus now. But
totally.
Yeah.